For those of you who don't know me, I'm Fannon. I've known Josh since I was 18. We met as freshmen at Skidmore College. We became very close over the next several years. And then we began making theater together and started a theater company called Fovea Floods. From 1997 to 2006-ish, we collaborated on 13 productions in various capacities and relationships: actor, director, producer, composer. It was an intense period of creativity, boundary pushing, and best friendship. We went through the light together, and we faced the dark together. We began to drift apart, and though we overlapped in Los Angeles for a while, we spoke and saw each other rarely. Our paths diverged. The last time I saw Josh was in 2018 at the funeral of our dearest friend and fellow theater artist, Coleman O'Toole. Over too many drinks, Josh and I once again laughed together, shed some cathartic tears, and we were both stunned by the amount of time and distance that had somehow filled the last decade. We apologized to each other for the mistakes that we had made, things we said and did, and we took great care to honor the bond that we had once forged, and we made sincere promises to reconnect and rebuild our friendship. Things felt possible, hopeful. That was the last time we spoke. As one of my favorite authors says, Kurt Vonnegut, so it goes. Probably the greatest influence on us as theater makers was Bertolt Brecht. It was an inspiration, not just through his plays, but just his ideas about art and making theater. And while Brecht is mostly known for his plays and his theatrical aesthetic, he was also a prolific poet. And his family discovered about 2,000 poems after he passed away. Josh made theater. He made music, but I think the only way to really define Josh is as a poet. All his endeavors, the good, the bad, the ugly, they were all an attempt at poetry. You know, it wouldn't surprise me for Josh to have at least 2,000 poems and lyrics in notebooks and hard drives and stuffed into closets all over the place. I'd like to share a Brecht poem that I know Josh would enjoy. And there's a section here that some of you might be familiar with. Truly, I live in dark times. The guileless world is folly. A smooth forehead suggests insensitivity. The man who laughs has simply not yet had the terrible news. The poet shuns shining harmonies. He blows trombones, shrilly whips the drum. He incites the people with chopped sentences. The new world, exterminating the world of pain, island of rapturous humanity, speeches, manifestos, songs from grandstands. Let there be preached the new, the holy state, inoculated in the blood of the people, blood of their blood, paradise sets in, let us spread a stormy climate. In the dark times, will there also be singing? Yes, there will be singing about the dark times. Show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why. Show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why. For if we don't find the next whiskey bar, I tell you we must die. I tell you we must die. I tell you, I tell you, I tell you we must die. I would also like to be wise. In the old books it says what wisdom is. To shun the strife of the world and to live out your brief time without fear. Also to get along without violence. To return good for evil. Not to fulfill your desires, but to forget them is accounted wise. All this I cannot do. Truly, I live in dark times. Earlier, I used the phrase the good, the bad, and the ugly, and in many ways I think that really, for me, sums up my experience of Josh and his life. Ironically, I have, this is my show and tell, I have this book from when I was a kid. It's called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And it is a pictorial history of wrestling from the 1980s, WWF. So a quick story, and I think people in the theater company know this, bits and pieces, maybe all of it, but share it with you guys. The night that Josh and I sat down to come up with a name for the theater company, we bought a bottle of Lagavulin single malt scotch, and we spent a long time going through this book looking for inspiration. Fortunately, we had several other books and music and resources with us because, I kid you not, we were extremely close to calling our theater company Abdullah the Butcher. This is a picture of Abdullah the Butcher right here with Andre the Giant. Yeah. So let me tell you a little bit about Abdullah the Butcher. Abdullah the Butcher was one of the most violent and bloody, hardcore wrestlers of all time. He was known for excessive use of blading, which is the practice of intentionally cutting yourself so that you would bleed and it would mix with the sweat. Some people also refer to that as juicing or gigging. But the blading resulted in these huge divot-like scars on his head. The scars were so deep that it's said that he could fit poker chips or quarters into the divots in his head. Josh and I were inspired. We woke up the next morning, groggy, and the name Fovea Floods was written in Josh's notebook. Fovea, a small depression in the retina of the eye where visual acuity is highest. The fovea is responsible for sharp central vision, which is necessary in humans for reading, driving, and any activity where visual detail is of primary importance. Floods. We got that from flooding, which is a psychological technique in behavior therapy in which an individual is exposed directly to a maximum intensity anxiety-producing situation or stimulus, either described or real, without any attempt made to lessen or avoid anxiety or fear during the exposure. Fovea floods. Side note: we once got a piece of mail that was addressed to phobia floors, and I tell you, when I saw that, I was so jealous. I mean, that should have been the name. What a perfect name. Josh directed the vast majority of Fovea Flood's plays, so it was rare for him to be on the audience side or audience perspective of our work. There was one such show. It was a play I directed called One for the Road, and Josh flew into New York to see it. And I'd like to share his thoughts, Josh's thoughts, his words, on the work of his friends and comrades.